demander. C'est fini. C'est fini. Tu veux qui, toi? Personne. Moi, je suis juste là pour être la petite souris si jamais là, mettons. You never get tired, Julie. Don't scrum your way out of a no-news day. Monsieur Picard, venez donc nous voir. Comment allez-vous? Regardez par là.
Ah, c'est là que ça se passe. OK, bonjour.
Bonjour. Est-ce qu'il y avait des points en tant que candidat d'effet que vous vouliez faire passer aujourd'hui? L'avez-vous fait?
Non, parce que tout le monde a partagé pas mal les mêmes opinions, l'expérience mémorable des 4 années du dernier mandat. Je pense que ceux d'entre nous qui quittons sortons avec le sens du devoir accompli. On sort avec l'énergie d'être certain d'avoir la bonne solution, la bonne recette, et donc de travailler plus fort pour la prochaine fois.
Mr. Picard, on a list, did you get any idea in there from the others, you yourself, is there a theme in Quebec? Is there a reason, perhaps?
The only theme to keep in mind is that we get out with the feeling that good job has been done the last 4 years. We do have a great recipe. We do have the way to represent our Canadian fellows and colleagues and constituents. And we have to find the way to get the message through correctly so people understand the same message.
Yeah, but during the campaign, Bill 21 came up over and over again, and everyone was kind of torn on it. The Prime Minister had one position, Mr. Blanchet had
Post-mortem will be done in time.
Did that hurt you, Bill?
Post-mortem will be done in time. I think it's we need to back up a bit and see how the big picture is going, because Quebec is not Canada, Canada is not Quebec. Everyone is part of Canada, and we have to look at Canada as a whole and how the big picture draws itself. And obviously, there are some differences, and not only in Quebec, everywhere. So
When
let's
you went to the door, what did you hear about Bill 21?
different views, and we have to listen, keep on listening to those different views, and work with, for sure, the actual Quebec government. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Mr. Easter, where are you going?
Lovely. 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 Très agréable. Il y a vraiment dit la prononciation.
Is that how it
No.
translates? I don't think so, does it? Mr. Fraser, can we speak with you briefly? Can you tell me if the can you tell me are the Liberals planning to go to have more aggressive targets for the 2030 emissions?
So what we said during the campaign is that we plan to exceed the 2030 target that's been set as we move towards net zero emissions, and want to have a staged process to get us to net zero by 2050 every 5 years. The exact mechanism isn't necessarily established on what that's going to look like year over year to 2050, but the plan is to exceed the 2030 target that exists with a view to getting to net zero by 2050.
So will you set a new target for 2030?
Look, some of these things haven't been formalized quite yet. I think there'll be a time, I expect before too long, when we'll have a little more to say on what it looks like once Parliament resumes. But there's not been an official shift in the target, only a commitment during the campaign to exceed the 2030 goal as we get toward net zero by 2050. Happy to sit down maybe once we're back in Ottawa if you want to do something a little deeper.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay, thanks everyone. What's that?
How the meeting went?
That was great. It's pretty informal. We got to see a lot of friends, some of whom will be returning to this Parliament, some of whom are going to take a bit of a hiatus, to say the least. But it was nice. I think it was great for everybody to see one another at least one more time before some of us go home for this Parliament. Excellent. Thanks everyone.
Merci.
Yeah.
Oh, Pardon. Voilà.
Parlement fédéral, nous avons une responsabilité de représenter tous les Canadiens et Canadiennes d'un bout à l'autre du pays. Et puis, comme gouvernement, c'est exactement ce que nous allons faire. Le plan d'aller en avant, je ne suis pas certaine c'est quoi qui va être exactement le plan, mais moi, comme députée fédérale, c'est sûr que nous allons faire le travail pour représenter tous les Canadiens et Canadiennes.
Mais pensez-vous que cette idée de lieutenant régional serait pas...
Encore une fois, il va y avoir d'autres discussions à ce sujet-là, et puis nous aurons d'autres informations à donner plus tard.
Do you know that the levels of excesses were as high as Global News reported?
Once again, I'm monitoring the situation very closely with respect to my team, and will continue to do so. Thank you. Merci.
Did you talk about Bill 21?
Nope.
You
Not
didn't
at
say
all.
anything about it? Was
Just
it an
saying
issue?
farewell to our colleagues.
That's it?
On disait au revoir à nos collègues qui ont perdu. C'est tout ce qu'on a
2
fait.
hours to be back?
But it was very
Quite a
positive.
few.
Happy to get reacquainted with your folks.
Alors moi, je fais ce que je suis demandée de faire. J'ai eu l'honneur pour 4 ans. Je ne savais pas que j'aurais l'opportunité de travailler sur un dossier qui est tellement important, mais qui est difficile, c'est sûr. Je veux faire ce que je suis demandée, mais je veux dire que je suis tellement impressionnée. On a eu un caucus, c'était extraordinaire. Ce qu'on fait comme gouvernement est vraiment important. Oui, on a du travail à faire. Dans l'Ouest, c'est sûr. Moi, je vais manquer des collègues, Mais je pense que c'est vraiment important. Alors, je ne sais pas ce que je vais faire dans le futur, mais vraiment, la transition vers une économie plus propre, avec de bons emplois pour les gens, ça va être au cœur de ce que je fais dans n'importe quel enjeu.
Ms. McKenna, yesterday Mr. Scheer said that he's still going to continue the fight against the carbon tax. Does that surprise you in any way, or did you think things might change after the election?
It's funny now that we're out of the election, which was quite an election. I had a lot of time to think about things, and I just wish we would come together. And I'm not even saying this in a partisan way, but we have to tackle climate change, and we have to grow the economy and create good jobs, and we can do that. But we have to use the tools that work, and we know a price on pollution works. It's unfortunate we're going to the Supreme Court. I was heartened because we just saw new interveners join, so we now have young peoples, we have Indigenous peoples, we have human rights organizations, we have health practitioners, we have municipalities, we have provinces, we have a whole group of broad range of Canadians who support pricing. But look, I mean, it would be better if we weren't in court. But unfortunately, Conservatives don't seem to recognize that Canadians want action on climate change in a way, of course, that creates jobs and grows the economy.
We also want action on the pipeline from the West. You've got a lot of pressure now, especially the West saying it feels alienated. How problematic is that? Like on one hand, you've got to fight climate change. On the other hand, you've got this huge pressure to get the pipeline done.
Like when we talk about the environment and the economy going together, we actually mean it. And of course we need to figure out how do we bring the country together. There is no bigger issue than national unity, but we also need to tackle climate change. And we can do this. We can figure out how we get our resources to market, how we transition to a cleaner future. And ideally we bring people together, and that's something I just really hope that we can do that, because we have a huge opportunity. It's a big challenge, but Canada's a great country, and this is a huge economic opportunity for jobs. And I do think we always have to be mindful that there are people, workers in Alberta and Saskatchewan and other places that are worried about how they fit in, and they need to fit in. Everyone needs to fit into how we're doing this transition, but we can do it, and I really, really hope that we can find a way to come together as a country. That's something that is extremely important to me.
En français là-dessus, vous parlez d'une transition verte qui crée beaucoup de divisions dans l'Ouest, beaucoup de gens qui sont frustrés de ça. Est-ce que vous avez identifié des pistes de solutions pour essayer de rebâtir des ponts avec ces gens-là? Comment peuvent-ils se sentir inclus, justement?
Alors, moi, je pense que ça, c'est une très bonne question. On doit vraiment réfléchir comment est-ce qu'on peut rassembler tous les Canadiens. Il y a des gens dans l'Ouest qui veulent faire certains qui sont inclus, qui ont des emplois. Il y a aussi des jeunes qui veulent plus d'action, qui manifestent dans les rues. Alors, c'est difficile, mais on doit avoir une bonne conversation où on écoute les gens. Et je pense écouter, savoir qu'on peut faire ça et essayer de le faire ensemble, c'est vraiment important pour moi. Merci.
Mr. I'm wondering though, like the premiers are meeting in Toronto in a few weeks, and they're still calling on you to get rid of the carbon tax, for example. So how are you going to work with premiers? If the message from Canadians is that you want people to work together after such a divisive campaign, while Conservatives and premiers are still calling for an end to the carbon tax, how are you actually going to work with them?
Look, I think that's a reflection all politicians have to have. We went through a very divisive election, but it's incumbent on us to make Canada work and to tackle one of the biggest challenges, the biggest challenge we face, which isn't really just climate change. It's how do you transition to a cleaner future? And on the one hand, we have, workers in the West, many people that are worried about how they fit into this transition. And you have young people who are marching in the streets and demanding more action. And we need to have empathy. I think empathy is really important. We need to listen. And we also have to use the policies and the tools that work and are the most cost-effective and can really create the innovation we need. And I see the innovation across the country. I see huge opportunities for us to come together. I hope we can do it. I hope we can.
Are you asking people to come come to your side? Are you saying it's our way or the highway? Or are you willing to change your approach in order to meet them somewhere in the middle? The last question.
We worked really hard. When we built our climate plan, it's funny because when I was thinking about in 2016, we spent a whole year negotiating with provinces and territories and Indigenous leaders our national climate plan. We developed a climate plan that all but one province was on side. Unfortunately, that's not the case anymore, but we don't have a choice. But you can grow the economy and you can tackle climate change, and you have to be serious about both. And so I think that if that is our goal, I think that there's room to move. But we have to have empathy, but we also have to focus on the reality. The reality is the science on climate change is clear. Canadians want action. They want it in a way that creates jobs and makes sure they're part of it, and we can do that. And I think politicians have to listen, and that's me too. I get it. We all have to figure out how we move forward, but there's no going back. That the world is changing, and it has to change and move to a cleaner future. And as I say, I think it's a huge opportunity for Canada. We can show the way how a natural resource-based economy can move to a cleaner future and create good jobs. Thank you. Last question. We won't be surprised by this. I serve at pleasure, and it's been a huge pleasure and an honor to be in this job for 4 years. I had no idea I would be in this situation and be in this job, and I will do whatever's required. But I do think climate change is not a one portfolio issue. It's everything. It's the economy. It's transportation, how we get around. It's how we build our houses. It's reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. And it's also in cities. So in Ottawa Centre, we have to do more. So it's something that I will continue to work on. And as I say, happy to do whatever I'm asked for. It is a real honor and privilege to be in this job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very emotionally, and it was the important moment to listen to them.
What did they have to say? Any concerns that they brought up specifically?
Nope, they just talked about how honored they had been to work for the people of Canada for the past 4 years, and it's something we sometimes forget. It's not easy to be a politician, and when you put your heart and soul into something and it doesn't work out, it's not easy to take. But they were all very, very proud. Some of them had served for 4 years, and some of them had served for over 40 years. I'm talking about Ralph Goodale, and have made important contributions, and they were conscious of the fact that even though they didn't win, that they had participated in something that was nation building for at least the past 4 years.
Est-ce qu'il y a des pistes en français, s'il vous plaît?
Yeah, sure. There was a chance to listen to some colleagues that we won't be working with in the same capacity, and to listen, to what their experiences were, not just in the campaign, but over the last 4 years, and their advice as we move forward. Where focuses need to be, where we can listen more closely to the diverse voices of Canadians right across the country in different circumstances, and to move forward together, knowing that there's a way forward.
Because you're in a minority government, and that could last 6 months, a year, 2 years, 4 years, what do you think the two biggest lessons are that you need to kind of deal with to make sure you win a majority next time?
I don't think it's about winning a majority next time. I think the work that's in front of us right now is making this Parliament work for Canadians, and that's a responsibility that we have to assume in a different way because of the way in which Canadians dealt this Parliament to all of us who were fortunate enough to win on election night. It involves not just listening to the other parties, it also making sure that when we sit down with Canadians, that parliamentarians understand what's being said to us collectively. We have a capacity to listen with a filter on, and to hear the things we want to hear to justify the actions we want to take. I just came from a housing conference in Edmonton. Spent 3 days in the city talking to city councillors, the mayor, but also housing activists across the country. It's incumbent upon Canadians to present us with a consensus to act upon, and then it's incumbent upon us as parliamentarians to find a way to work together to achieve that consensus. That's the way I think that we'll achieve more, and that's the way I think we'll be successful.
It sounds like there's a bit of a humility coming out of this meeting. I mean, McKenna said that empathy was one of her takeaways that she's taking away tonight.
Look at you stop after an election like this, and you think about the issues and the positions you took personally, the ones we took as a party, the policy work we did, the policy work we didn't do, and it's a great honor to sit on the government side, but we were told to work with more people and work differently. And I don't think it's a question of humility. I think it's a question of pragmatism. Canadians gave us limitations, and I think they actually gave us opportunities to listen better, to build stronger consensus, and deliver more good policy faster. And I think that if we're serious about achieving things in this Parliament, great things can be achieved.
Is it pretty clear that your biggest dance partner would be the NDP on housing, on farm care?
I'm a former city councillor, and every city council meeting you'd have 300 or 400 items on the agenda, and you would have to compose a vote for 300 or 400 items. I think there are some issues where it's obvious who the dance partner is. I think there are other issues where we're going to have to compose new voices. It's not just ideological, and it's not just partisanship. There are issues in urban centres, there are issues in rural parts of this country, there are Indigenous issues that cut across party lines, quite frankly. And as I said, it's about us listening to Canadians as parliamentarians. It's about we've been given the responsibility to work together. It's about fostering that cooperation and collegiality. And then it's about driving those consensus through Parliament to back to Canadians and meeting their needs and meeting their challenges. I think all of us have to assume this election with a great deal of humility. I think from a if I could put my pundit hat back on as a former journalist, I think the message that was delivered after a very nasty campaign by Canadians was to all politicians to stop the nastiness and get back to work. Stop the partisanship for partisanship's sake and achieve things. Find the consensus. Quit looking for the battleground and find the common ground. And I think that if we can do that as a government, we'll have a long life, but we'll have, more importantly, good policies delivered to Canadians.
I could see you doing that. The Prime Minister said his first order of business would be a tax break for the middle class. I could see you could probably work with the Conservatives, but could you see them working? Could you see yourselves working with them on anything else? Maybe the pipeline? Or?
Well, no, but the Conservatives, when you listen to, I was just in Alberta for 3 days, and I was just listening to a city that's on the verge of ending homelessness in Edmonton, and just got some real tough news out of the Alberta budget. We have a national housing strategy, and we have a capacity to partner. If it's not with the provincial government, we can partner with cities across this country. As I said, Canadians have asked us as a parliament to find the common ground and to build from that common ground good, strong policies that serve the needs of Canadians. Tax fairness is in everyone's best interest, and I, when I won votes at City Council, sometimes it was with unlikely allies, because we represent communities that have more in common than have differences. And at the end of the day, we have to find that common ground.
Are you saying if you can't work with Doug Ford or Jason Kenney, you'll work with the cities, but the cities need the provinces?
I'll work with whoever. When Canadians present that consensus, and parliamentarians get to work realizing the policies that serve that consensus, I'll work whoever is outside of Parliament to achieve that and deliver that. If there are some politicians that want to continue to play political games instead of serve Canadians, I don't think they understood what the message in this campaign was. I think the message in this campaign was enough with the partisanship, enough with the nastiness. We want Parliament to deliver results for Canadians. Get to work at finding that common ground, and that, I think, is the way you unite the country back together.
What politicians were you thinking of?
Hey, look, you can name names if you want to name names. names, and naming names gets back into that partisanship. What I heard from the voters that I talked to at the doorstep, what I've heard from talking to colleagues today, and what I've heard from talking to opposition members, and what I've heard from talking to people since the election, which includes a trip out west, is that they're tired of this non-stop 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week campaign partisanship stuff. What they're looking for is politicians to put their differences aside and find the common ground. Because when you find that common ground, more Canadians are served by Parliament, and that's good government.
As you do this self-reflection, what role do you think yourself or the Liberals played in that partisanship and that nastiness?
I am as quick to get the elbows up as anybody. I didn't lose my tooth playing the Conservatives because I was the nice guy on the ice. But it's. I think the message that I got from the doorstep and from talking to folks after the election was that they're tired of the politics of games and clever sort of memes, and they're tired of sort of the cheapening of politics. They want good government. They're tired of the politics. They want good government. And I think that part of what we have to do as parliamentarians is, as I said, listen to Canadians, find where that consensus lies, and then work as parliamentarians to realize it as policy.
Does that mean less time on Twitter?
For me? Don't take all the fun out of my life, but I think we have to lean into and demonstrate listening more than talking. And the politicians are really quick sometimes to talk, but sometimes they need to listen. And so I think it's a little less of being a smart aleck and a little bit more of being a good parliamentarian. And that's fine. I think that's a good lesson to be taught sometimes.
So you're coming out of this election. It changed.
No,
Nah.
I think I've seen that before, but no, I think it's. I think people want that kind of politics toned down, and so, that's certainly one of the messages I heard at the door, and so I'll take a look at it.
What was it in the Liberal campaign that you think that could change in terms of the nastiness? I mean, really, was it all on the Conservatives? Did the nastiness just come from that party?
No, I think it's part of the political climate and part of the political realities we deal with. I think that modern day politics has become this we've weaponized cynicism. It's getting in the way of good government. And it pits Canadians against each other, it pits politicians against each other. When I think that we might get more done if we look to work together, and I think Canadians delivered us a parliament that's going to force us to do that.
Can you give me an example of how you recognize cynicism? What's a concrete example in this campaign that you looked at?
So one of the ones that my name was tied to was a briefing note I'd written to caucus on town halls I'd held about housing affordability, and it was turned into this secret document, the secret policy. That when you read the document, it was complete fabrication. What I think Canadians are really tired of is politicians thinking that deliberately lying to Canadians is a political tactic that works, or that is good for government, or that's good for the country. And I think that we need to take a good long look in the mirror and understand what we've done to contribute to that, and be honest with ourselves, and then take an even longer look at what the election delivered to us, which is a parliament that Canadians have been very clear they want us to work together. So we'll work together, and that's good ideas always get better when you collaborate. No worries.
Que le pipeline, c'est pas assez. Il y a des gens qui croient fortement que le pipeline ne va jamais se faire construire. Là, ça va prendre du temps. Moi, je sais qu'il y a déjà 3000 personnes qui travaillent sur le réseau, qui vont en avoir 10 000 par l'été. On vise la fin de la construction d'ici fin mi-22. Donc, c'est très important pour les gens patienter, d'avoir les conversations face à face. Il faut continuer.